Hey, welcome back. Hey, I have my Christmas tree up. You want to see? It's my little 4-foot Christmas tree. Isn't it adorable? Just don't mind my mess over here. That's my desk. Isn't that the cutest little tree? And it's got my Disney. I'm going to try to get up close here. It's got my Disney ornaments on it. And then my favorite ornament of all time, I've had her for years, is my lady. I bought her when I was traveling somewhere, and I have carried her around in tissue paper all these years. You know, the first couple of years I lived in the RV, I didn't decorate because I kept thinking, oh, I'm going to be on the road. I'm going to be leaving. I don't want to have a tree in the way. Yeah, no, I'm here for the winter. So I put up a tree. I have it sitting on a little stool here. So today I want to talk about why I don't date anymore. And it's not that I don't love men. I do. I love the company of men. But being in a relationship just wasn't panning out for me. I was married 23 years to someone that I loved very, very much. We just grew out of each other and ended up divorcing in 2009. And when that happened, I thought, well, I'll just go find somebody new. And I got on all the dating sites and I went out and, I didn't even date anybody for about 6 months after the divorce, or after we split. And the first person I went out with, first of all, I got to tell you a story. So my cousin and I were good friends back then, and I would always, if I was going on a date, I would send her there because I would do a background check on him and everything. I'd never dated. I hadn't dated since I was 18. I thought, who are these people? They could be Jack the Ripper, for crying out loud. So I would do a background check on them. I would, find out where they lived, first, last name, where they worked, all this kind of stuff. And I would send this information to her. And I would say, this is who I'm going out with tonight. If you don't hear from me by, midnight tonight or whatever, start looking. But we always had nicknames for whoever I dated based on usually their profile picture. And the first one I went out with, he was holding a fish. Of course, that ruined it for all the rest because most of the others are holding fish too. But anyway, he got called Fish. So anyway, I went out with him and we had a great time. We met for dinner and we were laughing and joking. And so then we went on a second date and again, had a great time. And of course, we're both putting our best face forward, and of course, mine's always my best face. But anyway, we seemed to get along great and I was seeing all the best of him. Well, then I finally went to his home. Now he was a contractor. I finally went to his home and the house that he lived in was super cute. It was a little house but it had no flooring. It just was plywood and there were a lot of unfinished projects and I tried not to go hard on that because I thought, okay, he's a contractor. He's busy. He, doesn't have time to finish projects at home. It's kind of like the mechanic that's car is always a beater because he doesn't have time to do his own. Or like my roots, I'm a hairdresser. I never have time to do my own. So I didn't judge too hard. And we ended up, taking a weekend trip here and there, whatever. Anyway, and over the few months that we dated, I started to see the reason nothing was done is because he liked to just kind of hang out and smoke weed and watch TV. And I didn't smoke weed and I didn't mind watching TV once in a while, but I kind of liked to get on the go. I had my other RV then. I wanted to go and do things. And he just kind of, and I realized that he didn't really have work either. He said he was a contractor and owned his own business, but he didn't have any jobs. One small one here or there, but he was just kind of barely getting by. And anyway, so that I felt like I had been bait and switched. I thought I had this, construction worker. He's got a good business. He's got this. Maybe there's some, because I'm a go-getter and I wanted to travel and I wanted to do things. And we ended up taking a trip, but I paid for it. And, and so I was like, okay, well, once I realized that he kind of was just a bump on a log, I was like, okay, yeah, that's not going to work. So we parted ways. And he also showed up at my back door once, uninvited, and that kind of creeped me out. But that was early in the that should have been my red flag right in the beginning. Anyway, nice guy. He's moved on. He's got a great girlfriend. I think they even got married or something. This was you got to remember, this was 15, let's see, that was 2009. So 18 years ago, something like that. Anyway, and I'm only going to tell a few stories. I dated a lot that first few years. I mean, I dated a lot. So I'm just telling a few stories because this video would be 4 hours long if I told all the horror stories. So then I went out with this, met up for a date with this gentleman, and we called him Skizzy. He was just super skinny, and it ended up being Skizzy. And we went to dinner, and I sat there across from him and listened to him talk about himself for 2 hours. We actually ended up closing down the restaurant, and I don't think I even got 2 words in. So we go to leave the restaurant. It's closing down. They're kicking us out. I go out, and we're the only 2 cars left in the parking lot, other than like the manager or whatever. Our cars were the only 2 in the parking lot. And I go out to my car, and it's been broken into. Someone had smashed the back window. They were trying to steal. I think I had some speakers or something in the back, in a box, and they couldn't get them out through the window. Although I laughed, I'm like, if you're going to break the window, then you could unlock it and open the door and take. But my alarm, I think, had gone off and scared them off. So anyway, like, I'm going to call the police, man, you know, because I want this on my insurance and da-da-da. This guy immediately is like, okay, well, I'll see you later. Well, you just going to leave me here? It was pitch black out there. There was one street light off to the side, but it was dark. He's going to leave me there. The restaurant's closed. I'm like, whatever, dude. So he's leaving me at the scene of a crime. He's out of there. I think he was afraid of the police, honestly, because he looked a little shady, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, I knew this was not going to be a second date situation anyway, but who leaves a woman alone in the dark? So anyway, I ended up going back in and asking the manager if I could wait inside, and he was super cool. He felt so bad, you know, blah, blah, and the police came, whatever. This guy that left me at the scene of the crime texted me the next day telling me what a great time he had and how much we connected, although I had not said 2 words, how much he just thought we could, you know, be this and that, and he'd love to see me again. I'm like, no, that's not happening. I mean, what? I mean, I know I'm a strong, independent woman, but where's the chivalry, for crying out loud? Then I went out with a guy. I just wrote a few of them down because there's so many and I didn't want to forget. It was just a 1-day thing. But he was about an hour and a half from where I lived, north, you know, and I was just bored, and otherwise I would have said no. But he's like, can you come up here? And I'm like, what? And I thought, all right, whatever, I'll go up there. So we were meeting at a public place, at a bar. I get there, the guy is hammered, and I mean, just grossly drunk. And I get there, and he's like pawing all over me, and, you know, just like very handsy and trying to kiss me. And I'm like, I just met you. Do you even know my name yet? What are you doing? And so anyway, he gets up to this date lasted about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe 30 on the outside. He got up to use the restroom, and I was out of there. I left. I never texted him. I never did anything. He was just gross. He was just, I mean, not a bad looking guy or anything, but just like, ew. So there was that. And you got to realize, these are people that I have, you know, read their profile, looked at their pictures, did a background check to make sure they're not a criminal, you know, all this stuff. So I'm doing my due diligence. And then you get there and say, who is this person? Who is this person? Then there was another one I dated, and he was cute. He was a little, you know, manly, kind of macho, and we talked on the phone and FaceTimed and stuff before we met, because he lived a little bit of ways away. And then finally decided we were going to go out, and we actually dated for a couple of months. We went on a trip together. We went camping together, that kind of stuff. And he was a lot of fun, but he ended up being, and this is the things you don't see until you really kind of start spending time with somebody. He ended up being an alcoholic and a drug addict, and I did not know that out of the gate. I mean, I knew he drank because, you know, we met at a bar and that kind of stuff, but this kind of stuff you don't see until you've dated him a couple times, and then you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? Who, what? You know? And so, yeah, that didn't work. So that was that. And then, oh, this one's kind of a long one, so sit down. There was this time I dated a homeless guy. I didn't know he was homeless. We actually talked back and forth on the phone, chatting back and forth, all the things, quite a bit before we went on our first date, because I'm getting more and more leery of people. And he had a college education, sounded like he came from a family with a little bit of money. I don't remember what he said he did for a living, or if he did. But anyway, we met for dinner at a nice restaurant in Bellevue, which is the higher end of Seattle. He shows up and he's got this backpack the size of Texas on his back. But he's clean, he's dressed nice, And I'm like, what's up with the backpack? Are you on the lam? What's going on? He's like, well, no, I ride my bike into town because all the, the traffic. And I get it. I lived in Bellevue at the time. He says, and I just ride my bike. And so I bring my backpack so I have a change of clothes and that kind of thing. Because usually I spend some time in town, and I knew I was meeting you tonight. And okay. All made sense. Although it was a pretty big backpack for just that. But we went Dutch Treat, which I don't know how I feel about that. I've always offered to go Dutch Treat because I figured this is just a meet and greet, the first date. So I don't want them to have to shell out a bunch of money on someone. They don't know if they're going to date them, or, it's just, we're just meeting, So we went Dutch Treat, and we went for a long walk after dinner around town, and, just window shopping and stuff and talking. And he was just so kind. He gave $1 to a homeless guy, and he was funny. We were laughing and joking because I'm a smart ass. He was a smart ass. We were just hitting it off. So we say our goodnights. Well, then a few days later, he asked me out again. He goes, let's go to the movies. I said, oh, that sounds like fun. Yeah, let's go to the movies. So he says, I'll meet you there because I'm working, and I'll meet you there. And then, if you want to grab the tickets when you get there, I'll handle the snacks. Well, that's usually the better deal because the tickets are always cheaper than the snacks at the theater. So we get there, and I get the tickets, and he is there on his bicycle with his mega backpack, and he pulls out a Walgreens bag. He's got the snacks, which is fine. I've done that before too. So we go in and we see the movie, and then we come out, and I'm like, well, let's go grab something to eat. It was still daylight. It was summertime. And he's like, well, I'm a little strapped on cash right now, so I don't want to go out and get something to eat. I'll pass. And I says, no, I've got money. Let's just go. There's a burger place right here. We'll just go grab some burgers. There was outdoor seating. It was perfect. It was summer night. And I enjoyed his company. He was fun to talk to. So we went, and I bought dinner, and we were sitting there, and then the story started to emerge. Turned out he was recovering alcoholic. He was living in a halfway house. He was not working. The backpack was everything he owned in his life with his bicycle. He was able to communicate with me online and through the dating site, through the computers at the library. I think he had like a burner phone that he paid, when he could on it and that kind of stuff for texting. And his family had kind of disowned him. He did have a college degree, but when he became an alcoholic, which started in college, his family had kind of, even though they had money, they lived in another state, they had kind of disowned him, and he was kind of on his own. And I felt bad, but I did not need that in my life. And so I told him, I says, we can remain online friends and we can chat, but we're not going to date anymore. And he understood. So fast forward like a year later, we've been friends on Facebook. We didn't really talk much after that. I think he was embarrassed or whatever. And I'd say hi once in a while, but I didn't want to encourage the situation. So like a year goes by, and I see him post on Facebook, hey, I'm in Bellevue. I've got to do some laundry. Does anybody have any quarters? And he's just kind of putting it out there to all of us because he actually had a lot of friends because he was a nice guy. And at this time I lived about an hour away because I had moved from Bellevue. But I was just sitting home, and I thought, it might be kind of fun to see him again, just to see how he's doing. So I said, you know what? I can be there in about an hour and a half. I'll bring you some quarters. And he's like, oh, that'd be great. I'd love to see you. So I hop in my car and I make the drive, and I've got my 2 dogs with me. At that time I had a different Great Dane and a little Westie. And I drive up there, and I'm supposed to meet him at the library. So I get to the library, I leave the dogs in the car. I go in to find him. And as soon as I walk in, he's sitting on the floor in the entryway, completely obliterated, drunk. He had wet himself. It looked like there was maybe some vomit on his shirt. He was half passed out, half alive. And I'm like, oh my God. And I had to make a decision. Do I just leave? Because that's what I wanted to do. Everything in my soul was telling me, leave. But my heart is bigger than my brain. And I thought, I can't leave him like this. I can't leave him like this. He's a good person. He's just hard on his luck. So I get him up, and this guy is like over 6 feet tall. He's skinny, but he's tall. And so I'm getting him, kind of draped over me, and I drag him to my car, and I get him in the car, and my dogs, they're just like, whoa, the smell. Get him in the car, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take him to a hotel. I was making good money at the time. I'm going to take him to a hotel. So I went to a local hotel that wasn't too far away, that was close to things he would need to get to. I go in, I get the room, I get him in the room, get him situated. I says, I'm going to go get you some food and water. I'll be back. I ran down to the convenience store. I come back, I drop off, because I got him one of those little like extended stay things. So I had a microwave and stuff. I leave him quarters. I leave him soap because there's laundry there. I leave him, food, water, things he can microwave, just a couple sacks full, not a ton of stuff, just enough to get him by for about a week. And I says, I'm going to leave you here to sober up. I hope you do better, blah, 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 blah. And I leave, and I immediately get on Facebook on and tag him and say, anyone that knows so-and-so, this is where he is. I've left him there. He's not doing well, but he's paid up for a week. Please check on him, blah, blah, blah. And I go home. Well, not even, I think maybe a day or 2 days go by, and I get a message. Some friends of his had gone to check on him like the next day and found him, and he was comatose drunk. They took him to the hospital. And so they had messaged me to let me know that he was no longer at the hotel, because the hotel was in my name. I had paid for it, blah, blah, blah. And, that kind of stuff. And they asked if I could go to the hotel and get his stuff, because the hotel, I could go in there. I could get his stuff and bring it to him to the hospital. Apparently they had to rush him out. They didn't get his stuff. I don't know what the whole story was. It was years ago. But anyway, so I'm like, yeah. So I go back. I go into the hotel room, and it is trashed. There's vomit. There's, just a mess. And what he had done, I found out later, is he had taken the quarters I had left him, which was maybe $10 for the quarters or something, and gone and bought wine and drank himself into a stupor. I didn't understand alcoholics. I thought I was helping. I was probably making the situation worse. I gather up all his stuff into a black garbage bag, and kind of clean up the best I can. I throw the garbage away and stuff, but the room needs fumigating. I go down to the front desk. I tell them, listen, my friend was staying here in the extended stay. He became violently ill. They've taken him to the hospital, but he's no longer in the room. Keep the pay for the week, but the room needs to be cleaned before. And they were super sweet. They were nice. And I said, I'm so sorry. So I go to the hospital. I get there, and there's all these people there. Like, he has all these friends and support, and he's in the hospital, and he's sober now. And I bring him his stuff, and I'm like, hey, I hope you do okay, blah, 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 blah. Give him a hug. I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm done with this person. And I don't remember if I disowned him on or unfriended him or what, but I didn't hear from him for like 3 or 4 more years. Didn't see him on Facebook. So I think I unfriended him because I thought, you know what, my heart is too big for this situation, and I don't want to be drug into it anymore. I knew he was safe. He was, being taken care of. Well, like 4 years later or something, I get this text. Hey, this is so-and-so. Do you remember me? And I'm like, yeah, I do. How can I forget? Yeah, I do. How are you? And he says, I want to tell you that you saved my life. Had no one known where I was, or if that had happened, because at that time, he was living in a tent in the woods. I did not realize that. He goes, had this happened and I was out in the woods alone, I would be dead right now. He says, but because you came, you picked me up, you put me in the hotel room, my friends were able to find me, get me to the hospital. He goes, I've been sober ever since. I've got a job. I've got an apartment. Oh, I was so happy to hear that. I still have not reconnected on Facebook or anything with him. I haven't talked to him since, but it was just good to hear that he was doing okay. But yeah, that was quite the thing. That was the date that went over years and years. But that was even the last time I heard from him, because that's been probably another 5-6 years since I've heard from him. So I'm sure he's doing fine, I hope. And if he sees this, he'll know exactly who he is. And I hope you're doing well. Then I kind of gave up on the online dating for a while. And again, this was all pre-pandemic. I haven't dated since the pandemic, really. And I thought, I'm going to start meeting people in person. Well, we used to go to this casino dancing. Me and my girlfriends would go, you know, a couple times a month. They had live bands and stuff. And there were always kind of the same guys there. And there was this one guy that I would dance with almost every time, but we never really spoke. You know, we would just dance. Hi, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Well, one time he came over and he said, would you like to go to dinner with me sometime? And I said, I would love that. You know, he was super cute and he was always there and he seemed nice, you know, and so we went to dinner and we were having a conversation, and I won't go into the whole long conversation, but it ended up that he was married and just looking for a side chick. And I'm like, I'm not the side chick. He goes, but my wife's okay with it. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not. I mean, I'm not looking for, you know, a move-in type relationship anyway, but I'm not, no, that's not my situation. You know, and then of course, you know, I dated a few others too, and some for a couple months, some for just once, but it was just a lot. You know, it was a lot to deal with. And my heart is too big to deal with a bunch of problems. And I found that was the okay, let's just get down the nitty gritty. The problem was I was trying to fix people. I would meet people, I would see their problem, I would try to fix it for them because I care about people. But it was exhausting. And then it just made me like, I don't want to be around people anymore. Then the pandemic came, and I did date one guy for a little bit more, but he ended up being an alcoholic too. And we're still in touch. We're friends. I'm actually still friends with several people I dated over the years because we had a connection. It just maybe wasn't romantic. But yeah, so I haven't been on a date since, I think the last time I dated someone was just before I left in the RV. So like 2022. And I'm fine with that. I am absolutely fine with that. I'm not on any dating sites. I'm not looking, you know. It would take someone pretty amazing for me to give up even this much of my freedom to be in a relationship again. So that's where I'm at. And I'm sure both male and female on this app can understand and relate with everything I'm talking about, because I know there's women out there that are alcoholics or they're just looking for money or whatever. What I was looking for is I was financially stable. I had no drug or alcohol issues. You know, I was fairly put together. I was just looking for someone that wanted to have some fun, go camping, go hiking, go to Disneyland, do some fun stuff, go out to dinner maybe once a week or something. I wasn't looking to move in with anybody or anything like that. And that's harder to find than you think. It really is. It's hard to find because most of the men I met either had a ton of issues. They were looking for a sugar mama, someone to pay for everything, which I did that with several people I dated. Or they just wanted someone to move in with them and take care of them. And it's like, no, I want a best friend that has benefits. And now I don't even care about that so much. And that's that. Anyway, I hope you're having a great day. If I don't post another video before now, I hope you have a happy holiday, or maybe this one will even post after the holidays. I hope you had a happy holiday, and we'll see you next time.